So it appears that Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air, and this is yet another loss for Donald Trump. These are the headlines today. Jimmy Kimmel's show to return to ABC on Tuesday night. And I'll just say this, even friends that are way to the right of me were complaining about this. And I was like, whoa, even they were complaining. And I know one of my friends was a Trump voter the first time around. I don't know about the second time, but definitely the first time he was, because I had talked to him about that before. But on this particular issue, even he was upset. And I'll just say this, I have a lot of friends that live in LA, work in Hollywood. I used to work there as well. And basically, people were pissed over this thing. There were jobs on the line. We're talking about freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and all these kind of things. As you guys know, Donald Trump is constantly attacking. And it was interesting to see like how many people were coming out against the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel. Now, I'll say this though, there's a lot of things that have yet to be announced. A couple things that stood out to me was the original talks where they wanted Jimmy Kimmel to donate money to Charlie Kirk's organization as part of the, make amends to get back on the air. So I didn't see any statements anywhere if that is either happening or not happening. So I just didn't see it anywhere. And if you guys hear anything else on that, let me know. And again, the original negotiations were, if you want back on the air, give money to Charlie Kirk, which I think is ridiculous, but you never know. You just don't know if he did it or not. The other one was, will he make some sort of apology? Would that be publicly, privately? I don't know. What I do know, though, what I had read is that I guess he's going to modify his monologue thing describing the Trump situation. So I'll just say this. I wouldn't call it necessarily a total win for Jimmy Kimmel if you are indeed modifying stuff. But I'll also say this, and this is where it gets interesting. It was reported before The View, which is another show on ABC. Essentially, it's like a daytime show more targeted towards women. They talk about politics all the time, but they weren't touching the topic of Jimmy Kimmel. But then I guess today, finally, they're talking about it. So that's an interesting way, depending on how you want to read that, meaning that maybe before were executives at ABC telling them don't talk about said thing, and then now suddenly it's safe to talk about. So there's that. This was actually the statement from them. It said, last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment of our country, okay? It is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive. We spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy, and after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday. So, these are kind of your generic statements. I did want to read what they had to say because you never know what's going on behind the scenes. I think there's a lot of pressure from the industry, and like a lot of big name stars were speaking out against ABC here, and people are threatening to like quit, etc. And essentially, ABC is like weighing the pros and cons of this stuff, and obviously they wanted to get something to work out to get Kimmel back. There's one thing I want to mention, and sometimes people, I'm sure to say it, like overplay one side. I'll just say this: the late night talk shows are declining in popularity. Okay, like sometimes I'll see comments and say, "Oh, Chris, you're so stupid. Jimmy Kimmel, like 1/3 of the country watches him." And it's like, where are you getting these numbers? That would be like 100 million people. Like the numbers that I've seen in terms of his viewership, and this would be all the late night shows, is like anywhere from 1 to 1.7 million people. It's declined like 30-some% in the last couple of years. Just younger people, just people in general just aren't watching TV. It's not shocking, right? You all know you're either watching streaming, you're watching literally me on YouTube. So I'll just say this, like, I don't even watch these late night talk shows, but it doesn't necessarily mean if I like them or don't like them that I want them off the air. And it doesn't mean that I hate free speech. I want them to be able to say, whatever they like. And this is part of, understanding of living in the USA. Now, with that said, it is a tricky thing in USA because it doesn't necessarily mean that you have the right to slander anyone that you want, right? Like just make up crap. And I think you guys should understand this stuff, but this is something that we do have to address because there are stations out there like your Fox News who tend to bend the truth quite often. And I'm sure you understand this, we talk about it all the time. I also want to show you guys this, and this is where I want to have honest conversations about with you guys with this stuff. And it's hard because when you talk about the Trumpers, they're basically dishonest people and not serious people. Like, look at this. This is from Homeland Security. They play this footage here, and they're comparing arresting, undocumented workers or illegal immigrants, however word you want to say, to Pokemon. This is an actual post from the Homeland Security retweeted by the White House just recently. And again, they're portraying their ICE people as being like Pokemon, and they play the song "Gotta Catch Them All" and blah 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 blah. This kind of stuff is sick, and I'm just, literally, when I show you guys this stuff, it doesn't feel real that any government would do this. I honestly don't know of any other government that would do this other than the USA, to where like this memification of our culture. Do you guys see this stuff? It's crazy, right? And then they also play. I'll show you. They play like these like kind of like catch 'em all cards. It's just right here. Yeah, see this? They got the Pokemon character, and they play like cards and stuff like that. And it's ridiculous, and it's hard to have honest conversations about this stuff. And so, as I always say, whenever it comes to Trump, I mean, the guy's a liar and sets a bad example for the country. I don't condoning this kind of stuff, and I always make the same case as well. And this relates to any of this stuff. Whatever the Trumpers do, I literally just look at it and just tell you what I think. So, and I think this is stupid. Now, regards to, I know it is, and in regards to like some of the other stuff we need to have on, trying to have conversations about them, we got regarding of like what is free speech or what is harassment, etc. Listen to this. This is Kristi Noem, and she's claiming that Gavin Newsom, was like some threatening statement on social media where Gavin Newsom was like, "You're gonna have a bad day." That was literally the quote. "You're gonna have a bad day." Listen to what she has to say about the bad day thing.
First, your reaction to bad day for you.
Well, it was cryptic, and it was really menacing, I would say, Sean. It immediately panicked my family and friends. Within, I would say, a couple of minutes of that being posted, I started to get text messages and phone calls, family, my kids saying, "Are you okay, Mom? Are you fine?" They know the threats that I've had. They know the threats that they've had, the things that have happened to them because of politicians like this that say things and somebody grabs onto them that has an agenda, the cartels and criminals that have threatened our family already. So when you get a post like that by a governor, immediately, my staff and family think, what is going on? What does he mean? And we're trying to figure it out. So, this is a day and age where we've always known that words matter, but there's been real consequences that we have realized that have happened to incredible people like Charlie that we'll have to live with forever. And I hope we all learn from that. I hope we all learn that it's time to start listening to each other, having civil discourse, and stop ridiculous, irresponsible posts like Governor Newsom put out there.
And so this is why it's hard to have these discussions in USA these days, because literally the Trumper people, they're just completely unserious, and they're just actors slash liars. I mean, does Noam honestly believe when Newsom tweets out about having a bad day that this is some like serious threat and the Secret Service needs to address it? I mean, do you honestly think that? I mean, obviously it's a joke, and it makes it really hard to have, how can I say it, like solve our problems in USA if there frankly aren't adults in the room. And then the whole, say, Kimmel situation where literally the dude's just telling a joke, playing footage of Trump. I mean, that's what it was. And then Trump acts like this is some egregious thing that we need to pull the guy off the air. And that's why it matches up with the Noam stuff, to where this is what Trump is doing these days. He's just going after everyone, basically. A lot of the stuff, though, is distractors. So while the country's talking about, say, Jimmy Kimmel, what they're not talking about is like the Argentina bailout, which I think is absolutely insane. Or what they're not talking about is Trump, or Crump, I guess you can call him, Trump and all his crypto nonsense, which is like money laundering to the extreme. And there's any number of stuff that you can talk about. And so it's like, how do we address these topics? And none of this stuff, be it with Newsom bad day tweet or whatever, when Noam comes out and we make a whole issue of it, it doesn't actually address people's real problem. It's just like, hey, I need to put food on the table. I need to get a job. Please bring inflation down. These sort of things. And what this whole thing was based on was Newsom recently in California. They want to make it so that when the ICE people come, that you can't wear masks to conceal your identity, because I agree wholeheartedly with Newsom, and maybe other states will do this also, because the basic idea is like, do we want Trump, who can basically social media and point his finger at anybody, and then sick mass goons on said person, or threaten your license, or call on federal prosecutors to say, hey, just go throw that person in jail because I don't like said person. Like, we do not want that kind of system, and we don't want these kind of people in power that are completely unserious. So I mean, she clearly is not going to think, oh, Newsom's like some threatening, menacing thing from saying bad day. It's just ludicrous. And let me show you another example of how ridiculous these Trumpers are. This is a post they tweeted just a few hours ago.
And right now we are dealing with, as I called him at my speech on the ellipse, a tyrant. We used to compare the strength of our democracy to communist dictators. That's what we're dealing with right now, Donald Trump. And these titans of industry are not speaking up. And perhaps it is because his threats and the way he has used the weight of the federal government to take out vengeance on his critics is something that they fear, and I get that. I understand why they do. We've seen the demonstration of it.
And I'm with Kamala on this one, right? And I even used the word tyrant as well. I was like, how do you want to call Trump? Does he want to be a king, an emperor, a tyrant? What word do you want to use? And so then they'll act like Kamala Harris is inciting violence. Like, this is the quote from them. So I just want to show you what one side says, what another side says. So you just saw Kamala talking on TV, and then the White House tweeting out, sick. Failed presidential candidate Kamala Harris is inciting violence on MSDNC. Like, what? Calling the duly elected president of the United States who escaped 2 assassination attempts a tyrant. Communist dictator. Is that what we're dealing with right now with Donald Trump? I mean, and this is where I feel like, say, the Trumpers, is they live in some like bizarro reality and just go whatever, Trumper says, oh, well, Trumper said it and I have to believe in whatever. But I always, tell you guys, just have critical thought. I show you both. I say, this is my opinion, and I invite your opinion also, and I have honest discussion about it. Because honestly, when you're talking about Trump, who is attacking comedians, Rosie O'Donnell, or attacking Jimmy Kimmel, or Trump will tweet out he's going to attack Taylor Swift. Really, is like, I hate Taylor Swift. He'll tweet that kind of stuff, and then the Trumpers go on and on about other people saying bad day on social media. It's ludicrous. Like, if they're really serious about this stuff, they would crack down on Donald Trump, because it is not a good thing when Trump will just pick out private citizens and just send his DOJ on them for whatever reason. And this is something that he's again doing to create distraction. So today I just wanted to address this stuff because I think the Kimmel coming back on the air is a good thing. But I also want to be honest with you that the night shows just aren't that popular anymore, because sometimes the channels on the left will try to overplay it, how these are really, really popular channels. Like, most Americans don't watch it. I'm just telling you the truth. Most Americans don't watch it. It's not as big as you think. And I think, though, however, to be fair, I think, though, this tells a larger story, though, of Trump trying to control the media, be it TikTok or otherwise. Because if he can get Kimmel off the air, what show is next? And then what would the TV environment, movie environment turn into? Would it all turn into, you have to praise Donald Trump kind of stuff? Because remember, Trump, he's mostly concerned about having his TV show kind of presidency. He picks people to come on his basically TV show, and they have to be actors, and their whole act is that Trump is the greatest president of all time and everything is awesome, and lie about the numbers and these kind of things. And so when you break the facade, or compete with his ratings, because that's how he thinks of this whole thing, then he gets really upset. And it's ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. And oftentimes I get really frustrated to where I feel like there's still a third of the country or something like that live in this weirdo, bizarro fantasy land that actually don't want to address the nation problems, and they get stuck on whatever stupid tweet of the day of Trump. So that's my thoughts on this stuff. I would like to hear yours, and I'll catch you on the next video.